So what I'm going to do is select my diagnostic trouble code that I have displayed, and I simply do that by clicking on it. And now I'm going to have the data necessary to diagnose this trouble code. Now, you may notice that I'm not actually showing any definition, and this is not surprising. The reason that it's not surprising is because what we're looking at is an actual Volkswagen factory service code. And these are specific to Volkswagen only. They can be related to a standard OBD2P code, but in many cases they are not. So how do we actually go ahead and define what this code is? Well, once again, with the Genisys Touch, we have the ability now to access the database provided by Identifix to get at information that you might not normally be able to get at easily or readily. And to do this, we're going to once again go right back to the Genisys Touch, and you'll notice that there's an icon down here that says Direct Hits. Well, we're going to go ahead and click on that Direct Hit icon, and what we're doing now is the Genisys Touch is actually going to go ahead and interface with the database at Identifix, and we're going to be able to pull up information specific to the code that the Genisys Touch has found. Pretty slick. Now you see we've handshook with the database for Direct Hit, and we have information available to us. Now, I can simply use the stylus here, and I can scroll down to determine what type of information that we have available. So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down on the screen, and I actually have fixes listed for this particular code in the Direct Hit database. Let's go ahead and look at the fix for this particular problem. I simply click on the fix, and there's my information. Not only do I have the definition of the code, what we're actually dealing with, but I have test procedures to go ahead and diagnose that particular code. So if we take a moment to take a look at test procedures here, what we're going to notice is it's talking about engine running problems, that type of situation, no start conditions. So in this particular case, this code is not associated to our lack of power situation. That's actually not an uncommon failure on Volkswagens either, where you can have codes that do not relate to the specific problem you're going after. But once again, that's not a problem, because with access directly to the Direct database, we have the option of going ahead and entering a specific symptom to see if there's any information available on the specific symptom that we need to look at. Now, to navigate to the specific symptom that I want, I'm simply going to click the back button here and return to the navigation page as you see now. Once I'm at the navigation page, I simply go to the taskbar here, select the keyboard, and then I'm going to select the entry pane, and now I'm going to enter my symptom. In this case, we're talking about low power. Now you'll notice as I begin to enter information, it's automatically going to pull up a pull-down menu that actually gives you the most common associated automotive term. So I can go ahead now and just click on low power and then push my search button, and the system is now going to go ahead and search. I'll close up the keyboard to make things a little bit more clear. And now the search is completed. So you can see it happens pretty darn quick. All right? The search now has brought back a whole number of different loss of power issues. Let's look at the very first one, lack of power. That's exactly the symptom that we're looking for on this particular car. And if you notice, over on the right-hand side here, we have a whole number of different confirmed fixes for this lack of power situation. So once again, we can look at the details of this particular archive simply by clicking on the title. And that's going to open up that archive, and once again, what we are going to be seeing is not only the types of vehicles and year ranges that this particular fix applies to, but we're also going to have, once again, the symptom and all the procedures necessary to go ahead and diagnose the lack of power situation. So at this point, utilizing the scan tool, utilizing the data stream capability of the scan tool, I have the ability now to follow this particular archive and go in and diagnose whether I have a problem with a restricted intake manifold or a bad mass airflow sensor or any of the other things that I had talked about. So once again, you can see with access to this information with the Genisys Touch and having this vehicle right here in the shop with the Genisys Touch right at the vehicle, I don't have to run back and forth to another computer. I don't have to run back and forth to an information system. I have my information system right with my scan tool right at the car. Now I'd like to show you a couple of additional features that you have access to directly from the Genisys Touch Scan Tool when you're interfaced with the Direct Hit website. Let's go back to the Scan Tool here. And as you scroll down through the information available, I'd like to call attention to this section in particular. What we now have access to is actual factory information via our Factory Direct feature. That means that not only can I look at the procedures generated for this information, I can look at it in terms of how do I remove the parts, how do I adjust the parts, what are the actual mechanical actions I have to perform to fix this vehicle. This information is all hyperlinked. I can go directly to the piece of information I want, simply click on it, and it's going to pull up that bit of factory information. So this becomes even more powerful. As I scroll down, I can look at what other technicians have been finding in the information that they are providing on what has fixed the car. There is no more powerful tool in the industry. There is flat no more powerful tool in the industry than this because of the interface between the scan tool capabilities of the Genisys Touch and the information capabilities of Identifix. Everything is right here at your fingertips. Now I've scrolled back to the top of the page, and what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to leave the Direct Hit website now. I'm going to back out simply by clicking on the X. I'm going to close out my code information, and I'm now back to the actual scan tool itself. What I'm going to do now is I have the information necessary to start to perform a diagnosis on this vehicle, so now I can start utilizing the scan tool functions themselves to go ahead and perform that diagnosis. So in our test procedures, it talked about going into vehicle data stream and looking at some specific vehicle data blocks. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do that simply by touching on the data stream icon. And now I have my data stream selection screen on the scan tool. What I can do is I can go in and I can look at specific systems. I can go into engine, I can go into knock control, I can go into various systems like that. Or I can actually utilize the Genisys Touch in the way that Volkswagen normally utilizes data stream by data measuring blocks. So to do data measuring blocks, I just simply have to click here at the top selection, and now I have the data measuring blocks that I can go ahead and enter into the vehicle. So the data measuring block that we specifically were looking for here happened to be data block 003. So once again, what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to click here on group 1, which automatically pulls up my keyboard. And now I want to go ahead and look at data block 003. And as you can see, now I've entered group 003. Once I've got group 003 entered, I go ahead and select Done. And the scan tool now is going to interface with the vehicle again, and we're going to actually pull up the live data stream. Now, this is a diesel, so right now I don't have the vehicle running, so we're actually just looking at the representation of the data screens as opposed to live data, because you wouldn't be able to hear me with a diesel knocking in the background. So what we're interested in, though, is in this particular case, the data measuring block shows 4 fields, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And each one of these fields is a specific bit of data that we're interested in. For instance, what we have here, field 1 is engine RPM, field 2 is the mass airflow sensor reading, field 3 is the air mass reading again, and field 4 is the actual duty cycle of the EGR valve. Now, why is this important for diagnosing a low power condition? Well, one of the things that can cause low power in a diesel is lack of airflow into the engine. So what we're interested in here is what our actual mass airflow sensor readings are with the vehicle running at idle and then also running at higher speeds. If we had a restriction in the intake manifold, air will not be able to enter the engine properly. Consequently, we'll have lower than normal mass airflow sensor readings. What we would expect to see on this particular vehicle, normal idle, if everything is working the way that it should, is approximately 240 to 340 milligrams per stroke. And what we're actually measuring here is EGR, not actual airflow. It's a measure of EGR function, but this gives us a good idea of what's happening inside of that engine. Now, if I had a situation where that mass airflow reading was significantly lower than those numbers that I was talking about, now I'd want to start doing some physical inspections to determine, do I have carbon buildup, do I have a physical problem actually within the intake manifold itself. All right? Another potential problem for low power would be a problem with the vehicle turbo. Now I can go ahead and I can look at the turbine input in this data stream once again simply by clicking to another data group. So let's go ahead and we'll finish with this data group. I'm going to go back into data stream again, back into Volkswagen, and this time instead of group 003, I'm going to be interested in group 011. and I'll hit done. And once again, it's going to interface with the vehicle, and I have my 4 fields again. In this particular case, the 4 fields that I'm looking at is I'm looking at engine RPM, I'm looking at boost pressure, I'm looking at boost pressure that the computer wants to see or desired boost, and then I'm looking at duty cycle for the boost control valve or the N75 solenoid. Now, why is this important? Well, this is important because, once again, using the power of the Genisys Touch and watching this data stream on a test drive, I can see what the computer wants to see for boost off the turbo and what's actually being produced for boost off the turbo. Now, that could lead me to a number of different failures for low power on this particular car. It could lead me to a faulty vacuum pump. It could lead me to bad vacuum lines. It could even lead to a bad turbo. But the point being is, I've got the information at my fingertips as to what the computer wants to see driving down the road and what I'm actually getting. What we're looking for, of course, is for those numbers to match up. Now, in this particular vehicle, this is what's known as a low pressure turbo. It's a 1 atmosphere turbo. So when you're looking at data off the turbo, it's going to show you not only the atmospheric pressure, which is going to be approximately 1,000 millibar, but the boost above atmospheric. So it's always absolute boost or absolute turbo pressure. So in this case, what I'd be looking for at wide open throttle, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 4,000 RPM under full load, about 2,100 millibars of boost. And as you can see, if the computer is asking for 2,100 millibars of boost and I only have 1,200 millibars of boost, I've basically got no boost on this vehicle at all, meaning that I've got a problem either, once again, with the engine not being able to breathe properly or with turbo function. All right? Now I can take this information that I've gleaned from the scan tool and I can go right back into direct hit again, and I can determine, okay, how do I go about testing the turbo? How do I disassemble the turbo to determine if the turbo is jammed up or full of carbon or that type of situation? So there's a synergy here between use of the Genisys Touch tool in terms of scan data, finding out what the actual information is on the vehicle itself, and then the information contained within the interface to the direct hit website. With both of these things interacting, everything you need, once again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, it's right here at your fingertips, right at the car. No more running back and forth to the office to look at a computer, no more cracking open a bunch of books. Everything is right here. So this is going to cut down on your diagnosis time, it's going to cut down on your repair time, and these are two things that we all know as technicians. Bottom line is, the more cars that you can put through the shop in a day, the more things that you can fix and fix right the first time, the more money you end up putting into your back pocket, and that's a good thing for everything. Bosses love that, we as technicians love that too. Now, the last thing I'd like to cover is special tests, or the ability of the scan tool to go in and perform some of the specialty tests that have to be done on a Volkswagen on a fairly regular basis. So, to access specialty tests, we simply go right down here and click on that icon. And now we're going to come up with the list of all the different special tests that we have available. And I'll just click here, and here's my list. Now, you'll notice that each one of these tests is named, and each one is usually associated with a number. So what we'll have here is we'll have adaptation, which is function 10. We'll have basic settings, function 04. We'll have controller coding, function 07, and on down the list. Now, each one of these will actually go ahead and perform specific functions. Now, there's a ton of information associated with specialty tests. So we're not going to go too much in depth here. That's going to be saved for a later date so we can go in depth and show you exactly what's going on. But I want to show you that the capability is available here. So let's just take a look at the various things so we understand exactly what we have the capability of doing. Adaptation allows us to go into the scan tool and actually perform adaptations on things like, is the vehicle going to display kilometers or miles in the odometer? It will allow you to recode an odometer to the current mileage on a car if you're replacing an instrument cluster. It will allow you to go into various systems and to set parameters like whether the horn beeps or the turn signals flash when you lock or unlock the vehicle in the comfort control system. So it gives you quite a bit of power. Adaptations does that for you. Basic settings allows us to go in and perform basic resets on various functions. Throttle body basic settings. Throttle body basic settings are accomplished typically in group 060 or 098. 060 for vehicles that do not have a throttle cable, and 098 for vehicles that do have a throttle cable. There's a basic setting 063 for resetting the kickdown on automatic transmissions. There's a basic setting 000 in climate control, or 001 on the Audis that allow you to reset all of the climate control doors. So many basic settings can be performed through the basic setting function. We can also go ahead and go in and log in to change adaptations. What login does for you is login gives you the ability to actually unlock the security system in various modules so you can go in and actually work on safety systems. A classic example of this would be the Mark 60 ESP ABS system. With ESP, you have a device called a steering angle sensor, and to actually do any work on that steering angle sensor, you have to log in and unlock that capability. So login ECU allows you to go in, enter the proper code, which happens to be 40168, and that allows you now to operate or to do basic settings or reset or testing on that steering angle sensor. So once again, important to have that capability. Continuing on, we have output diagnostic tests as an example. Output diagnostic tests allows you, once again, the capability to go in and perform a physical output test on all of the controlled devices from the particular control module that you're logged into. As an example, if I'm in engine, I can go ahead and go into output diagnostic test, and that test will actually force the cooling fans to start up. It will force the system to run tests on all of the solenoids. It will force the system to activate any of its wastegate actuators or anything along those lines. So once again, tremendous power. So as you can see, there's a large bit of information that's contained within all of these different special tests, and the ability to do them is absolutely critical to servicing Volkswagen and Audi, because in many cases, after we've replaced a component or we've replaced a specific control module, and in some cases even in servicing something as simple as a battery, we're going to have to go in and perform some of these specialty tests. So once again, this is something that we'll be talking more about in the future, but we just wanted to show you that the tool is a complete tool. It does have that capability. So this is something that I think you'll find very, very efficacious in working on Volkswagen and Audi. I know I like it.